In the Dragon Ball franchise, Frieza was a vicious tyrant whom reigned terror upon the 7th universe. He ruled with an iron fist, killing all those in his way and wiping away entire worlds like Planet Vegeta if they proved problematic enough. Frieza's capacity for evil was matched by his wealth of cruelty, and while his motivations are easy to understand, one question that has largely gone unexplored in this franchise is why is Frieza this way? What caused him to become the monstrous conqueror and deceiver that he is today? Was Frieza born evil? Well, I think this question really comes down to nature versus nurture. Was Frieza born with this nature and capacity to harm others and dominate them, or was he rather influenced by external forces and nurtured into the monster fans know and love today? This is a very difficult question to answer because Toriyama and the writers haven't really delved much into his backstory throughout the decades since his first appearance. Although we know of Frieza around the time he ruled and destroyed Planet Vegeta, we know very little about his time before that. We don't even know how old he is in universe because his age never appears in the manga or anime. So this leaves open a potentially large window of time for him to have developed into what he became by the time of Goku's story. But whether the development was natural or whether he was guided to that point is the matter at hand. Now, if we look at the natural argument, that Frieza was simply born evil and with a negative predisposition, there could be some evidence for this position. After all, Frieza's father King Cold was also evil, holding a similar position of dominance over the universe and having no problem with destroying planets if they proved problematic. And if we look beyond the main story of the manga and anime, Frieza additionally has a brother, Cooler, who is also evil, as well as his ancestor Chilled, who is evil and domineering as well. And even if we peer beyond the bounds of Universe 7 to Universe 6, and we look at Frieza's doppelganger Frost, while he appeared to be good at first, he was also revealed to be evil and basically doing the same thing as Frieza all along. So this shows that every member of Frieza's race in the greater anime are for all intents and purposes evil. But does this actually mean that all of them were naturally evil? I'm still not too sure. Excluding Frost, in the case of all of these examples I've listed, they all have one thing in common, that they're members of the same family. In Frieza's case, he was raised by King Cold, a very evil entity, and his influence very well could have affected Frieza as he was maturing. After all, if King Cold is the one who established his empire and conquered many of these worlds, it only makes sense that Frieza was granted his position of political power by Cold. However, if we were to count Chilled as existing, then that also implies the same could have happened with Cold. And he was additionally influenced by his own ancestors. But in these videos, I like to try and look for the answer that fits in with what Toriyama and the writer's original intentions for the characters are, and who they were actually written to be. So let's look at Toriyama's words themselves in this interview where he briefly touched on Frieza's race. In this interview, he states, "Frieza is what you might call a mutated life form. Strictly speaking, Frieza's father is a mutant with abnormally high battle power, and born from his father alone, still in strong possession of mutant traits, was Frieza. Accordingly, even saying Frieza's race, these two are the only ones who possess an abnormal battle power and cruelty." So what Toriyama is saying here is that in his mind, only Frieza and King Cold exist as a part of what we call the Frieza race, and that Cold was a mutant with massive power who passed on his power and mutant traits onto Frieza through asexual reproduction. And while people always comment and say Frieza said he had parents on Namek, this was simply a translation error or misinterpretation. And what Toriyama is saying in this interview actually can fit in with what Frieza was saying in the Japanese. But what Toriyama says last is also very intriguing in regards to this question, as he stated Frieza and Cold are the only two who not only possess their level of power, but also cruelty. see. So is Toriyama implying here that Cold's mutation is what caused him to be evil, and that passing those traits on to Frieza resulted in him being evil as well? That's certainly up for interpretation, and I'd really like to see Toriyama expand upon this in further interviews. In either case, the question remains as to whether or not Frieza became the way he is today through nature or nurture, and I would say the answer could be both. Even if Frieza was born with some natural evil passed on to him from his father, it's likely that Cold's upbringing of Frieza is what truly cultivated this evil and led him to being so cruel. Really, even a good person under Frieza's situation could go evil, as absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it would be easy to see that someone like King Cold or Frieza, who was born so overwhelmingly more powerful than almost everyone in the universe, could become used to using their power for their own gain. And over the course of decades, centuries, or millennia, could become so corrupted to the point where wiping away entire worlds is both unproblematic and enjoyable to them as well. But as we've seen in Dragon Ball, even those born evil such as Majin Buu or Demon King Piccolo, or those raised to be evil such as Vegeta, still have the capacity to do good, and to become good. And that could still very much apply to Frieza, because in the end, what matters is how you choose to live your life, and what choices you make. And as Frieza has shown in Dragon Ball Super, there may still be a small sliver of hope for him yet. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and enable notifications so you could see all of my content right away when it comes out.
Yeah, and you better subscribe, enable those damn notifications.